Several reasons could lead a person to learn ancient Greek. Perhaps the most common is the wish to read the New Testament in the original, but other reasons include the reading of the great philosophers, important texts from late antiquity, or even reading the great Homer, the princeps of poets. In my case, it was the second reason, philosophy. One philosopher in particular. But to summarize a long story, throughout the years after coming into contact with ideas of many different authors, including modern philosophers such as Leibniz and Kant, gradually one particular writer seemed to stand apart and far above any other, the Greek philosopher Plato. Plato's intent was not to impose upon his students any prefabricated doctrine or system, even less to do so by means of a murky prose as to hide dubious judgments or wishful thinking, as is the case of much of modern philosophy. For philosophy is not primarily concerned with the logical deduction from postulates, but with the very opposite movement, which is the careful departure from appearances and common sense judgments toward the invisible reality behind it. For those who have a comprehensive view of Plato's dialogues, it is clear that their primary function is to set forth images hinting the existence of an ultimate standard of perfection and self-sufficiency, against which all things are scrutinized and through which they derive their places in the order of reality. An awareness of one's falling short of that supreme beauty thus arises in the soul, accompanied by a fascination by it and a fire to reflect it as much as possible. Apart from the possibility of the described mystical visions, Plato's dialogues provide its student with invaluable equipment of investigation, by which they can navigate the landscape of conceptions in whose center lies the supreme standard. Given what has been said, I have the conviction that, if anyone would venture to learn a language for the sole purpose of reading a certain author in its original tongue, I would say the first language and author that are worthy of such a bold endeavor are Greek and Plato respectively. Now, with time one realizes that the translations of Plato, although sufficient to provide a good grasp of the whole, fail in some respects to transmit important nuances and connections across the whole corpus of dialogues. The desire then to get to the depths of Plato's grand vision may thus lead one to study the original language, Greek. But then one faces the bitterness and frustration that is the study of a dead language. It seems not possible to acquire fluency in reading and understanding a language that's no longer spoken. The standard grammar-based and translation-based textbooks offer a painful and quite frustrating path that at some point makes one wonder if we are ever going to read a Greek sentence without having to first solve it, so to speak, as if solving a puzzle. After spending quite some time with one of such traditional texts and experiencing a very slow progress, one may then search further for other materials, eventually meeting the great 2-volume course called Athanasi in its Italian version. This course, Athanasi, is indeed one of the most valuable resources out there. To make it perfect, however, it's necessary a teacher with whom the student can read aloud, repeat, and explore the text in a slower pace. The auditory experience is absolutely essential for acquiring fluency in a language. For that, we just have to see how children learn. My attempt with this series of videos I'm starting right now is to move slowly through the adventurous storyline of Athanasi, giving ourselves enough time to get familiar with the words and sentences, repeating them enough to let the sound pattern that animates the meaning to be absorbed and naturalized within our minds. The acquisition of the general grammatical patterns must happen gradually and as an a posteriori reflection on the text that must be first assessed in a physiological level, through resonance with its sounds and rhythms. In addition to teaching Greek, my secondary aim with this series of videos is to explore beautiful ideas in connection with Greek lore and Platonic insights, and general relevant reflections through the occasion of important words as they appear along the plot. So, our moving across the passages will be occasionally punctuated by interjections to explore Greek lore and ideas in connection to elements we find in the text. The present installment, which I will call Part 0, will be exceptionally longer, and its aim is to cover the preliminaries on pronunciation and writing system. With these covered, in the next video we can go into the storyline of Athanasi. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we have to see is, of course, how to pronounce the vowels and what are the vowels in Greek. Normally it's said there are 7 vowels in Greek, and are those you are seeing on the screen now. Alpha, epsilon, eta, iota, omicron, omega, epsilon. So let's see how we pronounce these vowels. Alpha is pronounced A. A. Epsilon, E. 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 Eta is a long version of epsilon, so we can pronounce as E. 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 Iota is pronounced as I. 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 Omicron is pronounced as O. 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 Omega is a long version of Omicron, so O. 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 Epsilon is pronounced as the French U, so U. 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 Okay, U. So A, E, I, O, U. So these are the vowels. Now let's see these vowels in combinations with the consonants now. So let's jump into the consonants. The first consonant is the equivalent of B of the Latin alphabet. So we just pronounce as B. Ba, be, be, bi, bo, bo, bu. Ba, be, bi, bo, bo, bu. The third consonant is gamma, pronounced as Latin G. Okay, so ga, ge, ge, gi, go, go, gi. So let's just be a little careful because gamma looks like a Y, but perhaps if you just imagine a little G here, you soon get used to pronounce it as G, and you won't be misled by its shape anymore. So this is gamma, G, okay? Ga, ge, gi, go, gu. After that is the equivalent, the Greek equivalent of D, delta. So this is delta. It kind of resembles D, so it's not one that normally yields confusion. So how we pronounce it? Just like D. Da, de, di, do, du. And here we have a consonant that's called zeta. Normally it's put at the end of the Greek alphabet. Here I'm just placing it next to D because their sounds share to some extent. There are two disputed views about how we should pronounce zeta. Some authors say that it should be pronounced as zd, like in wisdom. So this one here should be pronounced as zda, according to these authors. According to others, in ancient Greek it was pronounced as z. So in this case, here it will be pronounced as za. What seems to be most likely is that at some point of ancient Greek history, probably around 300 BC, 400 BC, there was a gradual shift in the way zeta was pronounced. So it's something between zd and z, probably. Just for the sake of convention, we are going to pronounce it as z here. So let's stick with z. Za, z, z, zi, zo, zo, zu. Okay. Za, z, z, zi, zo, zo, zu. So this one that has a very curious shape is zeta. The next letter here is phi. Phi is another one that's conventionally set at the end of the Greek alphabet, but here I'm putting it at this position because it's more or less like the position of F in the Latin alphabet, and we are going to pronounce it exactly as F here. The ancient Greek pronunciation of phi was probably not exactly F, but something like p, which is a P followed by aspiration. It's a kind of difficult and troublesome to do, at least for me. So I will stick with the conventional pronunciation that's used today, that is to pronounce it as F. There's also an advantage of keeping the pronunciation as F. It's because there is an immediate link with many European in English words that have PH into them. So like pharmacy. All right, so this PH was exactly is exactly a combination of letters that's supposed to replace phi, as in the Greek word pharmakon. So pharmakon is a Greek word, and phi was then rendered into Latin as PH. Okay, so let's just pronounce it as F for convenience. So it would be fa, fe, fi, fo, fu. Fa, fe, fi, fo, fu. The next letter appearing here is kappa. Kappa is just K. Okay, it looks like K, it sounds like K, so there is no problem. Ka, ke, ki, ko, q. Ka, ke, ki, ko, q. Kappa, okay, just like K. Now this one here may cause some trouble at the beginning because it looks like an X, but its sound is actually the sound of a K followed by aspiration. So it's like k, k, okay? In Latin, it's rendered as CH, okay? So here we should pronounce this as ka, ke, ke, ki, ko, ku. Ka, ke, ki, ko, ku. Okay, so this is Kai. The English name of this letter is Kai. Next one here is Xi. The sound of Xi is the sound of K followed by S, so like X, X. So Xa, Xe, Xe, Xi, Xo, Xo, Xu. Xa, xe, xe, xi, xo, xo, xu. So this one that has this funny looking shape here is Xi. So kappa, kai, and Xi. Ka, ka, xa. I think if you remember from your high school mathematics, many of these letters here are present in mathematics, right? So perhaps you're familiar with many of these words. This may be one of them, lambda. Lambda is just the equivalent of L, okay? So just pronounce it as L. La, le, li, lo, lu. La, le, li, lo, lu. After lambda, we have the equivalents of M and N. This one that is mu, the name of this letter is mu. It's the equivalent of M, just pronounces M and looks like an M. So this is one that's easy. Ma, me, mi, mo, mu. Ma, me, mi, mo, mu. Now this one can cause some trouble at the beginning because it's the Greek N, but it looks like a V, okay? So we have to put some effort here to accommodate our, to get used to pronounce this. Very quickly you get used to it, don't worry. So here we have na, ne, ni, no, nu. Na, ne, ni, no, nu. Okay, so this letter here is called nu. So mu and nu, these two Greek letters. Now we have the equivalent of P, is the famous pi. Okay, from your mathematics, you maybe remember that it's the quotient between the circumference of a circle and its diameter. So this is the equivalent of P. It's then pronounced as pa, pe, pi, po, pu. Pa, pe, pi, po, pu. Now we have psi. Psi is pronounced as PS, like in psychology, which is a word that comes from Greek psyche. Okay, so this is pronounced as ps. Psa, pse, pse, psi, pso, pso, psu. Psa, pse, pse, psi, pso, pso, psu. This word here that looks like a P, so it can be misleading at the beginning, is the Greek R, but it's not pronounced exactly as the English R. It's pronounced more like an Italian R because it's the rolled R. So this sequence here should be pronounced like ra, re, re, ri, ro, ro, ru. Okay. Ra, re, re, ri, ro, ro, ru. This one here is a little difficult to do. Okay, so the rolled R, r, ra. You don't need to roll it so much, right? It's not very static to, I think, to make a r very long. So you can make it short, ra. Next here we have the equivalent of S in Greek. So this letter here is called sigma. It's just pronounced like S. So sa, se, si, so, su. Sa, se, si, so, su. It's actually sigma is actually written in this way if it is not the last letter in the word. If it's the last letter in the word, so it should be written like our regular Latin S. So in a word like eros, which in Greek means love, you see eros, so the last letter is S. So the S that would come in as the last letter of eros is this S here, as you see in a moment. Okay, so sigma sounds like S. Now these last two consonants of the Greek alphabet. This is just what it looks like, a T. Is the tau, pronounced as our regular T. So ta, te, ti, to, tu. Ta, te, ti, to, tu. The last consonant now is called theta. Again, the original pronunciation of theta was like a T followed by aspiration. So you would pronounce it like t. So this would sound like ta, te. But it seems to use a lot of energy to pronounce that. So you use the conventional pronunciation of theta, which is much more like the English TH. So tha, the, thi, tho, thu. So you can pronounce it as the English TH and it's okay. If you want, of course, you can try to make the ancient pronunciation. It's like ta, te, ti, to, tu, something like that. Okay. So this is the last consonant then. So we should now move and check some real ancient Greek words and try to pronounce them. So let's check some words here. Okay, so here are some Greek words for us to practice our pronunciation. So the first word you see there on the top left is zoe. You see this little mark here, this accent, this stress, is here to communicate, to mean that the stress must be on eta. The stress must be on eta and not on omega, for example. So you don't pronounce zoe. It would be zoe if there was accent over omega, stress over omega. The stress is over eta, so it must be put, the stress must be put into eta. This is just a signal then for stress. So zoe, the stress here. What is zoe? Zoe means life, like in zo, right? So it's a word that is used in many languages. I mean, in many European languages, is taken as a prefix for many words that were formed later, like zoo. We mentioned zoology. Okay, so it's life, but life in the sense of being alive, like in the biological sense, if a living being. Okay, so the essence of life and so on. Not in the sense, for example, of my life is like this, your life is like that. There is another word for life in this sense of my life has certain events that have taken place across my whole life, and yours different. So life in this sense is bios. Bios. Okay, this can be a little confusing because in biology you have the presence of this word in bio, and biology is related to the study of life in the sense of this attribute of being alive, studying life itself, not studying the life of a person in the sense of the events in the life of this person. So this can be confusing. Okay, so bios is life in the sense of, in a more general sense of the biography of a person. Okay, so in the biographical sense, your life as a whole, not the power or the fact that you are a living being. Not this is meant by zoe. Okay, so there are these two words for life, zoe and bios. So another word we have there is psyche. Psyche. Again, you see the stress over eta here. So it's psyche, not psyche. Psyche. So what is psyche? Psyche means soul. What did the ancient Greeks mean by soul, or by psyche in this case? Psyche means what? Well, it's actually not easy to answer because it depends on who you ask, which ancient Greek you ask. If you ask Plato, he would probably tell you that psyche is that which starts motion, that which is capable of initiating motion. Because if you think for a moment about how is that motion comes into being, you see that in most cases, motion is just transferred from an object to another. So perhaps in modern terms, you see there's a transfer of energy and momentum, or something like that. So it's like just things bumping into one another, transferring their motion. But then you can very legitimate make the question, and who or what starts it? Because if it's just transferred, so it must have to start at something. There must be something that's actually the source of all this motion. Okay, so if you ask some modern scientists, some physicists, some of them, the ones of a more materialistic vision or materialistic worldview, will probably tell you that, this things that you think start motion, like living beings as dogs and plants and human beings, they actually are not starting anything. You have the illusion you are deciding to where you move and that you are starting motion. But what's actually happening is that there are laws of nature that are governing your motion. And you don't have the free will that you think you have, but you are subject to unchanging laws that dictate your configuration at every single instant of time. Therefore this free will that you think you have is just an illusion. Yeah, that's a very conventional view. Other scientists, probably the ones of a more philosophical inclination, would see what's the problem with that. The problem with that is in this concept of law. You see, many physicists take for granted that such laws of nature exist and just are used to carry on their daily work with that concept in the background of their minds. But maybe just a few of them will realize that no one's actually inquiring what is the nature of these laws. What they are made of. Where are they? Because they are something. So are they somewhere? Are they at some specific place? Where are they? What kind of thing is this what you are calling law? So, and probably if you ask many physicists about that, they'll just give you a look that, well, that's a very strange question, like you have never faced this question before. Some of them, right? And this is actually a problem, because if you tell me then that there is not such a thing as free will, but everything is predetermined, there are unchanging laws of nature that then pre-establish how all matter filling the world will behave at any single time of existence, then I can make a very legitimate question of asking, okay, these laws, they are specific laws. You can write the equations for them, like Maxwell's equation, Dirac's equation, whatever. So they are specific laws. They have a certain shape. I can then ask you, why such laws are as they are and not different? Why they are as they are? So then you have to tell me, well, there must be something, there must be something that constrains these laws to be as they are. See what's the problem? Then you have to postulate other laws that will tell how the previous laws must be. So you must have superior laws that frame lower laws that in turn frame the world. So this is certainly a very big issue, because you are going to have an infinite regression of laws. And this is just nonsense, because you could then just consider all this chain of laws as one thing and call it a big law. So you are back to square one. So there is a problem in the idea of assuming that there are unchanging laws and no freedom. The only way I see to escape, and I think some scientists are also realized this, is that you have to postulate something, a certain nature that is not subject to law. That is, there must be some sort of nature that has a freedom, right? Because the only thing that can frame a law, if the laws are as they are, and the only way you have to explain why the laws are in the way they are is by postulating something that is able to frame the laws in this way they are, because this thing wants it to be in the way they are. Say, no, but I want to avoid this. This seems like God talk or something. okay, whatever you want to call it, it's just clear that you cannot have an infinite sequence of unchanging laws, because then you cannot explain why the laws are as they are. To explain that, you have to postulate something that has a margin to escape law and to be unconditioned to a certain extent. So there must be something that is not subject to condition. And for Plato, psyche is precisely something that to a certain extent is subject to conditioning, to law, because it is as it is psyche, but it also, to a certain extent, has freedom in it. Right? So psyche is to a certain extent ruled, has a certain shape, a certain essence, but on the other hand, it also has an element of freedom to it. And this is, it seems to me at least, to be the most reasonable view about things. That things, to some extent, they share into being conditioned, being framed by laws, and to another extent they have some level of freedom. So some things will have a greater share in freedom, others a lesser share. So this is the idea of psyche, at least for Plato. If you ask Homer, probably it will be a different conception. But for Plato, it is this thing which shares to a certain extent into being not framed by anything, has its own power of deciding, of choosing. So it's unbounded to some extent within a certain frame. So this is the conception of psyche. Okay, I spoke too much about it. Well, I actually mentioned in the introduction that I want to take some of those very important Greek words that are the center of philosophy and talk about them. So I'm not at least doing anything I didn't say I would do. So this is the concept of psyche, the principle of motion, that channel that brings motion into being and can start motion, therefore. Is a mode of existence which has this specific power of starting motion. So we have another word now that is nous. This is something that to properly understand would have to survey all the ideas of Plato. So I will just make an analogy here and leave it at that for now, at least. Imagine that you were surveying a certain landscape by helicopter, right? So you can see the landscape gradually changing, let's say from forest to desert or something like that. You can see the continuous change in the landscape as you move on. All right. So what is that which allows you to see these changes? With which organ you were seeing this change in the landscape? With the sight. It's sight that allows you to perceive that. Now, imagine you are going to found a new city. And well, if you're going to create a new city, what are the first concerns that you must address? Well, you want this city to be a good city, I suppose, right? Because what would be the point to create a city that is bad? That means the city that will decay and self-destroy, let's say after a certain time. So if you're going to create something, whatever it is, it has to be good. Otherwise, what's the point of creating it? We may even say, well, maybe I was actually asked by someone to create that. It's not my intention. I was just following orders or something. Well, in any case, the person that ordered you to create the city certainly wants you to do it good, right? The person entrusted you with the duty to create something that will be good. Otherwise, if he didn't want to create anything good, he would not ask you to do that. So in any case, if something is going to be created, it has to be good. Otherwise, there is no point in creating it at all. So you would like to give it good laws, this city. You want to give it good laws, proper public facilities, all that. And then you start to think then about how could you do that? What is a good constitution? How to properly arrange this city. So you must start to think about these ideas of what is good, what is virtue, what is ordered, and what is beautiful. You want your citizens to be virtuous, to be noble, to be beautiful. So when you start to have this vision and contemplate what you want your creation to be, you start to notice that there is a relationship between all these concepts I just mentioned, like goodness, virtue, order, beauty. You want the citizens to be beautiful, pleasant, helpful, all that. So you see, you are moving from one idea to another. The idea of beauty is not the same as the idea of goodness, which is not the same as the idea of virtue. They are different ideas, but still, you see that when you start to think about these things, you easily move from one to the other, as if they were part of the same landscape, as if they were naturally connected, intermingled in a certain way. Okay, so if you get one, it's very easy to move to another, as if they were connected organically. So in the same way that in the previous example I gave, that you were surveying a landscape with a helicopter, what allowed you to move and see the change in the landscape was your sight. With your sight you could see the landscape changing. Now, this landscape of ideas I just mentioned, of beauty, justice, goodness, all these things that you see are connected, forming a sort of landscape that you are surveying. Then you are easily moving from one to the other. You see there is a continuity between them: justice, beauty, virtue, all these things you want in your city. Now, question is, what is that which allows you to see this landscape? With what organ are you being able to survey this landscape of ideas? So in the same way that there is something that allows you to see the visual landscape, there must be something that allows you to survey this landscape of ideas. So the name that we can give to it is nous. Nous, which is roughly translated as reason or mind. Okay, so is then this faculty that allows us to see across the landscape of ideas. If you ask me how is that beauty is connected to goodness, so this is a very difficult thing to answer if you think about. And actually great part of the Platonic project of dialectics is exactly to survey this. It's precisely to survey this landscape of ideas and try to see how these ideas are connected with one another. This is dialectics. This is to survey the landscape of ideas with your mind, with your nose, trying to understand how they are interconnected, how beauty is connected to goodness, for example, how symmetry is connected to beauty, which is in turn is connected to virtue, which is connected to goodness. See, how can you pass from one to the other? So the study of this path, interconnecting all these ideas, is dialectics. And in the same way, when you think about ideas like evil, baseness, then you can easily be driven to concepts like of disproportion, aberration, right? Disorder, ugliness, selfishness. All these you start to survey one of these concepts. You were led to the other. So again, you are surveying a landscape of ideas, and the instrument that you possess allowing you to see across this landscape is nous, mind. What is doxa? Doxa is belief or opinion. So it's a judgment that you have about something that may be true or false. It's true to a greater extent or true to a lesser extent. So it's like you say, for example, this building is blue and tall. So you were imposing a certain frame into that thing you were saying. You chose to look at it through certain lenses. So it's an opinion, right? It's a framework that's imposed. You know that framework has a certain sharing truth to it in a certain way, but you also know that it's limited. It's a specific way to look at it. Okay, so to a certain extent it has a validity, but to another extent it has a limitation. So it's true and false at the same time. Well, whatever it is something that you are imposing into that for some reason, and is certainly not absolute knowledge. Certainly not what we would call episteme, absolute knowledge, because it has assumptions, it has hypotheses. So it has its principles, its axioms that it uses to frame the reality which it's observing. So if you have concepts like electron and whatever other concept, energy and force, whatever set of concepts you want to choose to approach reality, to frame reality within it, it's just a set of concepts. We don't know if they are true in themselves. They are convenient. The experiment, they agree to experiments to a certain extent. They describe well things very well with a lot of precision, but they have a limitation because all these things rely in assumptions. So the assumptions will be said to be good if, when you impose those assumptions, you get accurate results in experiments, precision. But tomorrow they can be replaced by other set of assumptions that yield more accurate results. All right, so science is also based in assumptions and principles that can be replaced tomorrow. Its axioms can be replaced. So it's also doxa, because you believe in the hypothesis that you are choosing. All the edifice that you were erecting are based in that foundation of the hypothesis. So it's also doxa. Now, then you can ask me, what would be not doxa? What would be true knowledge, episteme? So I won't, let's not talk about this right now, because it would, again, us vary astray from our course here. So let's leave it for another time. What is true knowledge? Not mere opinion. The next word appearing here is theos. Theos. Theos is God. Okay. So it's, I won't try to define what was actually a God in the Greek conception, but it's certainly a being that's superior to human, and that in a certain sense govern the universe, the cosmos. So the gods are very high living beings that rule the cosmos. That's at least the Platonic conception of it. So theos. So it's a word that you find as a fragment in many European words, like theology, for example. So it means a god. Here we have a depiction of Athena. So depending on which dialect of Greek, I guess you are, there will be a different pronunciation of the name of this goddess. In Attic Greek, it was pronounced, it seems, as Athena. Athena. So you see this little sign here over alpha. It's just to indicate the stress, but there is a difference with this sign. While this sign indicates just the stress, like it is a rising stress, zoe, so it's rising. This one is to mean that you have to raise and go down, because this is a long alpha. So Athena, see, there is a raising and a declining. Athena. Okay, so whenever you see this one, there is a raising of the intensity of the sound and the declining. Athena. So also indicates the stress. Which syllable has the stress? So Athena is theos. Theos. Okay. Chronos. Chronos is time. So like chronology and all that. Chronos. Chronos. Okay. So the next word you have here is polis. Polis was just the political unit in ancient Greece. Athens was a polis. Sparta was another polis. It's a political unit, roughly translated as city. But the cities were independent, right? So it's not exactly city in the sense we are used to, because they were sovereign. So polis, again, you find it in political, many words. Ge. You also sometimes find it in more poetic texts as Gaia. So Ge or Gaia means earth. Okay. So Ge, earth. Nomos. Nomos is law. Like a state law that you know, like in words like economy, you have the presence of law. So nomos is law. The next word is cosmos. Cosmos is the world, the reality that is manifest. Okay, So translated roughly as universe. And there is a certain understanding of order here. So the universe as an ordered whole. This word is physis. Physis. Physis is nature. So of course is from where comes words like physics. So nature. The nature of something. Okay, the specific mode of being of something is its nature. So the origin of something. Right. So physis is nature. Nephele, nephele, it's just cloud. Nephele, it's a cloud. Okay. Noema, noema, noema. Noema is thought. It's certainly related to nous. Okay, so noema, thought. Related to nous, mind. Soma. Soma is body. And you see, for example, in words like psychosomatic. What is psychosomatic? Something that has to do with, let's say, soul, psyche, and soma, which is body. So something that has to do with soul and body. And finally, the last word here is pur, pur, which means fire. Like pyromaniac is a word that comes to my mind now, that has this this little word embedded into it. So pur, fire. Just remind that the little het over epsilon there in pur, it means that the stress goes up and down. So pur, pur. Okay, so up and down. So it's a long U because you have time to go up and down. Pur. Okay. So let's move on to more words that we can pronounce here for practice. Phobos. Phobos. Sphere. Phobos. Thanatos. 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 Death. Okay, death. See, like euthanasia. Okay, so thanatos is death. Dendron. Dendron. Dendron is a tree. Tree, like this. Okay. Dendron. Musique. 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 I think you can guess it very easily. It's music. Perhaps depending on which text you're dealing with, could be music, not just in the sense of that we conceive music as the art related to sound, but could be anything that is inspired by the muses. So any form of art, like poetry, anything that comes from the muses. So this could be a more general word, a word that has a more general meaning that goes through not just music in the sense of something that you can listen to, but anything that is related to inspiration coming from the muses. Chrysos, 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 gold. It's gold. Kleros, kleros. Okay, kleros. What is kleros? Is a lot of land. A lot. farmland. So a lot of land. Kleros. This word here, tekne, 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 is sometimes translated as art, but it's art more in the sense of a skill. So something that involves a lot of practice to master it and get good at it, like playing a musical instrument or being a sort of craftsman, or like playing chess in modern, like in our modern terms, something like playing chess or programming, something that you have to do a lot of practice and you get good at it. You get used to its rules, like you get used to the rules of crafting, the rules of music. So a good artist, a good skillful man in this sense, would be someone that has practiced that so much that the rules are like in his bones. He's really one with that practice. So he's a very good craftsman, artist. He practiced chess so much, he knows all the openings, all the he's used to that set of rules. So a skill, an art. So a person that has tekne is a person that is experimented in a specific field. And from here then we have technique, technician, all words that are related to specific knowledge and craft, skill. So technique. Right. So but it's normally translated as art. So art in the sense of skill. So it's something that requires drilling. So Plato, for example, often associates this with the craftsman, people that are skillful in crafting things. Next you have potamos. Potamos is river. Okay, river. Here, philos. 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 Philos is beloved, someone that is loved. Okay, it's a philos. Mania. Mania. Mania is madness or frenzy. So here I have a depiction of the priestess of the god Apollo, called the Pythia. She would deliver prophecies of Apollo, and when she went through the process of receiving the prophecy, she would go on frenzy. Well, some people today argue that that was due to consumption of certain hallucinogenic substances, like some sort of mushroom, or that would help her to get into contact with the gods and so on. So this is mania, it's frenzy. Okay, and it's not necessarily bad, like in this sense here. Like, for example, Plato argues in the Phaedrus that even madness can be good if it's a madness that comes from the gods. Okay. In fact, he affirms that madness that comes from the gods is superior to the highest human knowledge. So basically everything has its share in good and evil. Even mania has its share in good, if it's something that comes from the gods. So the state through which the Pythia, the prophetess of Apollo, went through was called mania. It's a kind of frenzy. Let me just remark here that this letter here is a capital pi. So it's pi but capital. You don't have to memorize the capital Greek letters. As we go through the text of Athanasi, we will get more in contact with these capital ones. I don't want to make you memorize them right now because it would just be an overload. It's too much. So let's just forget these capital letters for now. They actually don't appear that much. This is a capital eta. Capital eta. So this is he. We are going to see exactly what this means here. But this would be read as heputia. Heputia. This just means the. Okay, so the pythia. But we'll understand this better later. But just for the sake of maybe you're wondering what is this stuff here. This is Heputhia, the Pythia, the priestess of Apollo. Okay. Pater. Pater is father. Okay, the word kind of delivers it, right? Pater. Pater. Remember, this is the rolled R. Pater. Teknon. Teknon. Teknon is child. Child. Teknon. Kora. 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 Kora is a place. Means exactly this place or a certain land. No. Kora. Pontos. Pontos. It's the sea. Okay, Pontos. Pontos is sea. Kakia. Kakia. Kakia is translated as badness. Kakia is badness or sin. Okay, something that is ugly. Okay, action or whatever is ugly in a certain sense. Could be morally ugly. Something that is distasteful. Okay, so badness of behavior, sin, whatever is shameful, ugly. Okay, kakia. Polemos. Polemos is war. Okay, so like polemic. Polemic is a word that is related. It comes from this root here. So polemos is war. Sometimes at the beginning of a word, we can see these little signs here over the vowels. What is the purpose of this sign? The purpose is to mark aspiration before the vowel. So we would not pronounce this as a, but ha. Ha. So ha, he, he, ha, ha, hu. So this little mark here is what is called a rough spirit. Spirit is not related to anything spiritual. It's just related to the idea of breath. So this the marks a rough breath. So okay, the idea of putting a H before. It would be equivalent in Latin, for example, to put a H before the vowel. So ha, he, ha, hu. So this is the rough spirit. Let's see some examples. So here we have some words. Hagios. Hagios is sacred or holy, like a sacred person, holy person, person that's pure, and so on. Hagios. Hekaton. Hekaton. Hekaton means 100. Hekaton. Hemera. Hemera. Hemera means day. Day. Okay. Hemera. Then hieros. 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 It's also sacred, like hagios, sacred, holy, but not used for people like a sacred person, holy person, more in the sense of ritual, the ritualistic sense of religion. So formal religious procedures, sacred objects, sacred temples. So more in the sense of something that's traditional and important to religion as in its formal aspect, not in the moral aspect as hagios. So hagios is like a saint, like could be used for a person to mean the person is a saint. Hodos. Hodos. Hodos is path, the road, the path. Okay. Hodos. House. 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 Salt. Helios. Helios. Helios is sun. So here's the sun. Okay. Helios. Ho here, I think I already mentioned before, but this is something we are going to focus on later, is an article. So it would be equivalent to use a the here in English. The sun. Ho Helios. The sun. So Helios. Hippos. Hippos. When you have a double P, double pi, like here, the effect of a double pi is to put a little pause before you pronounce the pi, as if you were charging it. Hippos. Hippos. It's not just hippos. You make a little pause as if you were charging the P. Hippos. Hippos. Then the next word, oh, I think I didn't mention the meaning, is horse. Okay, like in hippopotamus. Hippopotamus is literally horse of the river, because we saw previously the word potamos, river. So hippopotamus is literally the horse of the river. Okay. Horos. Horos. Horos is mountain. Mountain. Hydor. 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 Water. Hamartia. Hamartia. Hamartia is the idea of missing the mark, missing the proper action, the proper behavior, the proper point where you should have aimed. You missed the point. So it's translated in New Testament, for example, as sin. The idea of behaving not properly according to the right measure. So going out of the track, for example. So hamartia, missing the mark, sinning. So sin, the missing of the mark. Okay. Histemi. Histemi. Histemi is a verb. Okay, means to stand, to stand. Histemi. Hypnos, hypnos, hypnos is sleep. Okay, the act of sleeping. Not a verb sleep, the noun sleep. Hypnos, hypnos. And last word, hysterikos, hysterikos. This means related to the womb or to the uterus. Okay, so hysterikos. The word hysteria comes from here because I think in the 17th century there was a medical condition pertaining women, kind of neurosis that was believed to be related in some way to the womb or to the uterus. So hysteria was the word used to name that condition. So comes from this word here, this Greek word hysterikos, which means again related to the womb in some way, to the uterus. Okay, now we have also in Greek what we call diphthongs. Diphthongs. What are diphthongs? Are groups of vowels that should be pronounced as if they were one syllable, one vowel. And some of them are not they're not pronounced as you would expect. So these two here, these three, sorry, this one, and this one, you would probably pronounce this as IU, but it's pronounced just ao, eu, and this one is not pronounced as OU, but as U, like a double O in boost or pull, U. And the others are pronounced normally. So I, ao, eu, oi, u. I, ao, eu, oi, u. And here the versions of them with the rough spirit. Hi, how, hey, heu, hoi, hu. Hi, how, hey, heu, hoi, hu. Let's see some examples. So some words here. When you see there's a little difference here between this sign and this sign. While this just means that you have to add an aspiration, so hi, this is just to indicate that you don't have to use aspiration. You should not aspirate. So just pronounce it normally as a regular I. Ion, which means like a cycle of time, a generation, a lifetime. Okay, the idea of a period of time that recurs, a cycle. Next word, autos, means self, like in automatic. Then eidos means form, not just in the sense of shape, but could be also used in the sense of the shape of an idea. So its form, it's the form of an idea, the aspect of it, its signature, its identity, what it is, its aspect, what is special about it that differentiates it from other things. So its form, it's eidos, form, eidos. Remember, this kind of stress here is used to mean that the sound should progress upwards and then go down. So, eidos, eidos. Next word, euthys, euthys, euthys. So here is a diphthong, you pronounce it eu, euthys, euthys. It means straight or direct. Aule, aule, aule is a courtyard. Okay, a courtyard. Huios, huios, huios is sun. Huios. So there is a aspiration here. Huios. Oinos, oinos, oinos means wine. Oinos. Oikos, oikos is house. Oikos. Eudaimon, 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 eudaimon is happy. Adjective, right? Is an adjective that means happy or a person that's living properly, living well. Okay. Eudaimon, living properly. So, like happy. Eikon, eikon, eikon means likeness or image, a representation of something, a depiction of something, an image, likeness. So from here comes the word, the English word icon. The English word icon comes from this Greek word eikon. Eirene, eirene, eirene is peace. Peace, okay? The opposite of war, peace. Eu, eu, eu is an adverb, means well. Eu. Demiurgos, 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 okay? Demiurgos is a craftsman. So here's a depiction of a demiurgos, but not the regular demiurgos, the divine craftsman, as talked by Plato in the Timaeus. So the creator of the world, the God that created the world, is the divine craftsman, the demiurgos. And last word, you already used this word before. Okay, musike, musike. So this is pronounced as u, musike, u, musike. Okay, so this finishes the content of the first lecture. So the purpose of the first lecture was just to introduce the vowels, the consonants, and to practice some pronunciation. I also gave the meaning of the words, more for the sake of curiosity. But in any case, this is just an introduction to get us ready to actually jump into the text of Athanasi in the next lecture. So thank you very much and see you next time.